I think we're good to go. Greetings and a very warm welcome to all the attendees of CTOCon 2023. We've been treated to an incredible conference so far, and we're very thrilled to continue the momentum with a thought-provoking talk on growing a learning culture at your team. In today's dynamic work environment, companies must constantly adapt to stay ahead of the curve. And one of the key elements of success is fostering a learning culture within your team, of course. And this involves cultivating an environment where continuous learning, experimentation, and innovation are constantly encouraged. So today's discussion will evolve around all of these. And during our discussion, we'll explore some strategies and best practices for building a culture that supports your team's growth and development. We'll also sort of dig deep into how to establish clear goals and objectives and to provide, ongoing training and development opportunities for your team members and to enable and create an environment for them to feel comfortable, to take risks and learn from their failures, perhaps, right? I'm very, very honored to be hosting two fine gentlemen who've done very well in their careers. And, they both offer their unique perspectives and insights on the topic at hand. So before we begin, we'll start off with some introductions. We have Muneeb Sultan with us, who's Machine Learning Senior Manager at Insitro. Muneeb, a quick, brief introduction would be great.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Muneeb, like I said. I'm based out of the West Coast of the United States. By way of background, I basically am a theoretical chemist by training, and at Insitro, I manage a machine learning team that focuses on improving the drug discovery process for small molecules. And so Insitro is a biotech where what you're trying to do is reimagine drug discovery via ML. Happy to be on this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Muneeb. Thank you for joining us. And our second panelist is Anton, who is the VP of Engineering at Bravado. Anton, if you could quickly introduce yourself as well before we begin.
Sure. Hello, my name is Anton. I am leading the engineering team at Bravado, the largest professional social network for salespeople. And I am responsible basically for everything related to the engineering processes, like hiring, technical architecture, and stuff like that. I'm also based on the West Coast, Fremont, California.
All right. Thank you, guys. And thank you so much for taking out the time to join us today. We'll begin our discussion, and both of you, whichever one of you wants to answer this question first. I was reading an article which said that there's a theory that, if you work on improving 1% each day for a year, you end up improving 37 times better by the time you're done. So, as leaders, and both of you are in such positions, how do you suppose you can foster a positive environment that encourages sort of a continuous learning process within your companies, your organizations, and sort of make it a long-term priority for your organization? Anton, would you like to go first?
Yeah. So I have a few interesting examples and principles I'm using, and I think are pretty efficient in our team. So I will briefly describe them all, and I think later we can dive into the details of implementation of each.
Okay.
So first of all the events that we are running inside our team are focused around knowledge sharing. So it's not that we are doing some meeting and managers are just talking. They are mostly sharing knowledge. If they learn something new, they are trying to teach everyone in their teams about this thing. If I'm running a meeting, I am trying to talk about something that we implemented, something that I learned, something that was changed in our processes. So it's basically kind of the culture of knowledge sharing is everywhere. So another thing which is pretty efficient, pretty interesting, and people like is running a book club where you invite people who want to participate, and you pick a book, then you let them read it. Usually it's like a few weeks up to months. And then you get everyone on a call and you discuss what this book is about, what you like about it. We will discuss details of running this meeting a little bit later, but the book club is something that I find to be very interesting and efficient in terms of knowledge culture. Internal meetups is another interesting thing, which means you are suggesting your team to prepare some topic. It's like a mini conference, but this is happening inside your team. So someone is preparing a talk, slides, some research or some papers, maybe something about technology they recently introduced. And this person is giving a talk, answering questions. It also helps this person to improve their skills. And I can give some recommendations and some comments around how to run this process a little bit later when we dive deep into details. Another
It sounds fantastic. It is from the looks of it. It's a great way to encourage knowledge sharing amongst peers, and like also encourage and foster peer-to-peer collaboration, which is very important, of course, for any organization, of course.
Yeah, sure. And the another interesting thing is running your technical blog. So
Okay.
this is something, if you have shy people and they don't want to talk publicly, they can prepare some article in the form of just text. And we kind of started this thing as initiative to start sharing what is happening internally with the external community, and to improve our hiring process, because candidates were asking about things happening internally, and we started kind of sharing and sending them the link. And at some point I realized it is just a great thing to have inside your team, where people can just go and read your blog, especially important when someone new is joining your team. They can just go through the challenges that your team faced and learn from it. And people who are working on these articles, they're also like preparing, reading stuff, compiling all the information, doing some visualizations, which is also helpful. So this is just a few examples that I am doing in my team, but I'm also excited to see what Muneeb is doing in his team.
And I think you covered a large majority of the things that you have as well. One pattern I've found that is helpful is actually linking people's performance reviews to knowledge sharing. It actually becomes a powerful motivator to actually get this to happen in fruition. And examples of that might be successful completion of blogs, or doing technical reviews, or actually helping others do reviews outside of their domain of expertise, leads to one person becoming more of a subject matter expert on that, and the second person actually learning it on the side. I think that is sort of like a pattern that I think can lead to not just like accumulation of knowledge, which I think has to get done, but also being more willing to share it across the board. But yeah, I think Anton covered quite a few of the technical things that need to be done in terms of, we call them journal clubs and blogs and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And, it's such a great learning experience for me while talking to both of you, because, yeah, sure, there's some things, that we in our organization are also adapting. And, but particularly what Anton mentioned about technical blogs and like sort of writing, for people who are introverts or not comfortable in public speaking. That's something that even I was just, while you were telling me about it, I thought that's something that we could incorporate as well, because we have some of these as well in our organization, right? And it's a good way to give them a voice without putting them in a difficult position, right? But, this brings me to my next question, which is that, okay, so this has happened, and, we're talking about giving them a voice and, helping them to grow and enhance their skills. But, and, it's also, of course, impacting the learning culture as a whole of the organization. But don't you feel that it's a little bit difficult to keep a track, of these metrics that we've developed, and how can teams measure the impact of the new policies or new ideas that have been introduced. So if any one of you can share your personal experience of how you've been sort of keeping a track within your organization, whatever key metrics that you're using to see if the policies that you've introduced, if they've had an impact on the organization, that would be great.
I can start here. So I think it's a fair question. I think it's really hard to
Absolutely.
actually empirically, what I've found is our culture surveys improve in terms of engagement and response if we actually put in policies that allow people to grow in technical depth or other. They have a chance to like improve on their skill sets over time continuously over the course of a quarter. And that might not have direct impact on any single project, but it has a positive impact across a lot of them. But that makes it really hard to actually justify it on a week-to-week or a quarter-to-quarter basis. And that's something that I struggle with in terms of how to do that. And I don't know if Anton, do you want to chime in at this point?
Yeah, so I actually had some metrics that I was tracking, and the interesting thing is initially it was kind of the requirement from my side, but right now I'm not kind of asking people to do this. This is just happening. And this is kind of the cool thing to see, that you don't have to ask people to post in the blog. You don't have to ping everyone and say like, hey, can you give a talk the next time? But initially it was like a strict requirement to have at least one talk per month. And this was my requirement for Eng Manager, to have their team prepare something. So the Edge manager was responsible to picking a person who was implementing something new and giving a talk or posting it in a blog. And so I was mostly focused on having, like, let's say, one blog post per week, because we develop a lot of stuff. We are constantly like running experiments, building proof of concept. So we always have something to post about. It's just a matter of who is writing and how often. So one blog post per week, one or two internal presentations per month. And I'm not asking for this anymore, but I can see this is happening approximately with the same rate, like one or two presentations and a few blog posts per month. And so this is the like metrics that you obviously can track, right? But there are some kind of second level metrics that are dependent on these things that you can also see. So for example, you are this is, as I mentioned, this is helping you to this is helping with your junior engineers growth, and you can see if it how it basically the growth curve of your engineers, if they are like reading more, if they are taking more complicated tasks, if they can start doing some changes in the core. And if this happens, this is great. This means that these talks are bringing some value and helping them to understand better how our systems are working, how different parts of the system interact with each other. So this is one thing. And you can also track some kind of efficiency metrics. So for example, for a book club, one interesting thing that I like to see is how many people come prepared. So
Okay.
let's say we are running book club today. We are picking a book, and 1 month later we jump on a call to discuss this book. And let's say no one is reading this book, meaning that something is wrong, right? So the book is boring, or the
Yeah, I
format
was
is
just going to
not
ask, is
great.
something wrong with the team or the book? Which
Yeah, so this is also a pretty important metric, right? So it says that
Yeah,
something is wrong,
absolutely.
at least something is wrong. So this is basically metrics that I'm mostly tracking.
Anton, can I
It's
ask you a
interesting.
follow-up?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have examples of the books that you found were helpful for your team? Like, the names?
I do. So, for example, we started Kanban transformation about half a year ago, and I started from talking to one Kanban professional who explained to me the general steps of the process, and this person sent me a list of books prioritized by you should start from this book because it describes basics, then you should read these books because it describes how you can track Kanban metrics, and then you should read this book because it describes how to introduce changes to the team. So I had basically a list of 4 books, and we started from the first one, the one that describes why Kanban is so cool, how you can start the process of transformation from classic Scrum to Kanban, and this was great. So we started. We during the discussion, everyone came prepared. We had interesting insights, and we had a pretty productive discussion. But the next time when we have chosen the next book, which was about metrics, I think like only half of the team came prepared, and this was interesting. And we had discussion around why this is happening, and many people mentioned that we didn't have time to implement many rituals and many parts of Kanban yet, but we already diving too deep into the metrics and stuff, and this is too early, and this is something that we should start reading like a few months later. So this is another example.
Yeah, this sort of brings me to my next question, which is we're talking about, incorporating new strategies and learning strategies and, sort of encouraging this process of growth and, peer-to-peer collaboration. But like your team, the feedback that you got from them is something that I sort of experience every day also, right? When we're trying to introduce a new strategy, which requires them to incorporate something that goes, on top of the 40 hours work week that they already have, I feel like that could sometimes be an obstacle. And so what I would like to understand more from both of you is how can we make learning culture a part of the work routine so that it's somehow incorporated in the 40 hours work week that we typically have, and people don't have to put in extra hours after, the usual week that they're supposed to have, right? And yes, a blog, for instance, would require putting in some extra effort and extra time, of course, or, reading a book. So all these strategies, if I'm really motivated, I will do that, right? But can I say the same for everyone on my team? No, because, everyone has different priorities and different things going on for them. So how do you suggest we, incorporate some strategies to include it in the 40 hours and not sort of let the employees or team members feel a little bit overburdened, for lack of a better word? That's a difficult one, isn't it? And don't you suggest we put Muneeb on the spot for this one?
It's okay, I can take it.
Okay, go ahead.
There's this concept I learned a while ago, which is related to the idea of task-relevant maturity, which is this idea that for different tasks, where there are projects where you hand it off to a junior or a senior member in your teams, or you give it to a team that has certain I don't know, like key core skill sets that they can use to support one project, but to do another thing, they'll have to learn something new. I think trying to align the projects so that becomes, that is a requirement to actually have a successful technical execution is, it makes it easy. And so I think I'm not so sure how it works in the engineering side. I can talk about the machine learning side of things, where we might have certain folks that are subject matter experts in certain machine learning methodologies, but then you can give them a project which is in a different data domain, or requires a different way of looking at it, and you can give them some ideas about how to do it, but that will require them to still go and read up on new techniques in order to better model that data. And that can sometimes delay projects because you don't get the best person who has that basically solved that 4 times, do it the 5th time. But it does have the added benefits that you can have people learning as they go and solve the problem that you also need to solve for your organization in some ways. Pairing people helps as well. And empirically, I've found that if you give people a chance, most of the time they will go beyond the 40 hours if they have to, if they're learning something and they find it technically or even non-technically useful. I think they will rise to the challenge in ways.
Absolutely. Anton, would you like to add something there?
Yeah, so I find one practice to be very useful here, which is so at some point we noticed that we are not starting many projects to be very technically prepared and to have kind of all the details discussed, and we started doing something called technical briefs, which means that PM describes the business value, the feature, the main requirements, and then we started from most senior people. They started preparing some kind of technical description, like what algorithm should be used, what technology, library, like if we should buy this solution, if we should implement it internally, if we implement it internally, what is the data structures we use, like what is the like how it will look in database and code, like all this stuff. And so that as a person who knows nothing, I can just join, read the technical brief, and implement the feature, right? And so first of all, it kind of good technical brief is like 80% good blog article, and this is the job requirement, right? You just have to do it, and you can just invest like 20 minutes, 50 minutes just to convert it into the blog article. But more importantly, this is something that can be used as a great way for junior engineers to learn and grow. So at some point, we just started delegating this to younger people who just starting, who learn a lot. And for them, it's just a great opportunity to learn about the system, to dive deep into the database and structures. They also receive a lot of feedback from the team because they prepared this technical brief. A lot of engineers are reading. It's like code review, but for your ideas. And engineers review this, they provide their feedback, they give some recommendations, they comment on their solutions. And as a result, the solution that they have in a result is something very very efficient. It's discussed, everyone understands decisions made internally. So again, this also creates the great kind of base for the blog article or sometimes even a conference talk.
Absolutely. And, feedback and constructive feedback, of course, is very, very important. In a recent survey, it was found out that an organization that provides regular feedback to their employees will have turnover rates that are about 15% lower than for employees who receive no feedback, right? And keeping that in mind, how do you recommend that performance evaluations and feedback at that be effectively utilized to support continued learning within a team culture? And if there are any specific steps that any one of you can suggest that teams can take to make this process more effective, of course, the team also has to be open to receiving that feedback, and that kind of culture has to be established beforehand. But any tips and tricks that you may have or have used it within your organization to make this process more effective, the process of giving and receiving feedback more effective in your organizations, that would be great.
I can maybe start. So in my opinion, in my experience, so there are two levels at which you can give this feedback. The first level is the IC level, the individual contributors level, people who write code. And another level is managers level, when you can talk to managers and let them kind of start this culture inside their teams. And since I was giving this feedback on both levels, I can say like at individual level it doesn't work. It's not, you cannot tell someone to just go and start posting in a blog. You cannot ask someone, you cannot say something like, hey, I noticed you are not giving any public talks, you should like give 3 public talks in the next few months. So it doesn't work this way. The way it works is you talk to managers, you discuss, and you establish the culture of knowledge sharing, of posting, and presenting something new. It's not that you are picking people, but you start from people who know something interesting, who know how to do public talking, and who are willing to do so. And when these people start, others are seeing how, first of all, how much you can learn from doing this, because when you prepare the talk or blog article, you read a lot, you compile, visualize. Secondly, they become excited about questions and knowledge sharing process. And instead of just, 1 person out of 10, you can have like a few months later, you will have 3 people out of 10 who want to share something. And a year later, you will have like 7 person out of 10 who are posting in a blog, giving internal talks, preparing presentations, or even trying to give some talks on the conferences outside of the company.
Absolutely. Muneeb, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah, I think so. I think one, as I mentioned earlier, linking it to feed. So if you want like your ICs or your managers to be continually learning new things and sharing with the team, putting it as part of the way you evaluate them is really helpful. And then that requires setting up processes around how you would track those, which can be blogs or pull requests or technical reviews or writing or journal clubs or so on and so forth. I think the other thing that's helpful is, as Anton also mentioned, was you kind of need to lean on your managers and your senior IC to lead the effort here. And I think a lot of that comes down to is that when you're junior, you're just more uncomfortable being criticized. And once you get over that initial hump, which is it's okay, people will say something and it'll be fine. The thing won't end. The doc will still be there. That actually has a positive impact, and they have that um, desire to go again because they actually find it helpful and accelerating. And you can do it at the individual level or the team level. But it takes time. Like I think the year cycle is like, so you have to have certain people that are willing to go over and over again, and that's fine. But it might be accelerating the timeline is something that I haven't found like a good way around so far yet.
Awesome. Okay. We're down to the last few minutes of our discussion. So a few quick questions for you guys, and we'll keep them quick and short and, just like fun. So any one of you can go first and it's fine. Learning by watching or learning by doing? Which one would you prefer?
Learning by teaching.
Okay. Fair enough. Anton, learning by watching, teaching, or doing?
I'm pretty much on the same side. I would say learning by leading, but I think it's the same as learning by teaching.
Okay, your biggest failure, that was your biggest lesson, socially, personally, whichever one you would like to share. Muneeb, I think I'll go first with you because I think something's come up, of course.
Oh, I think that'll just require too much time. Maybe we can skip this one.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can just say something funny. Like for me, it was to let. I was initially thinking the blog thing, the internal presentations thing, will happen by itself, and I was expecting to people to jump in and start suggesting stuff and like giving talks, but uh, nothing was happening until I kind of introduced these, gave some examples, invited people to start, and only some spark happened that people started doing this.
Awesome. Okay. And one skill that you guys would like to learn in the future? I'd like to drive. I'd like to learn how to drive. I don't know how to drive. So that's something that I'd like to do. But yeah, Anton, we'll go first with you.
Yeah, this is probably the hardest question. Probably I'd like to be the inspirational speaker. Like it's hard. It's easy to speak in general, but it's hard to inspire. So this is something that I want to learn.
Absolutely. Muneeb, a skill that you'd like to master in the future?
I think maybe going into a new domain and figuring out what the critical pieces to learn in that are. And that's really needed because in drug discovery, we have 1,000 different processes that we have to worry about in some ways. And so being able to quickly pick up on things is the caveats around that is something that I constantly think about how to improve.
All right. And I think that brings us towards the end of our discussion today. Thank you both. Thank you for joining us today. It was great speaking to both of you. And thank you for sharing all your, tricks, tips with us and the audience today. And that's it from us, guys. Thank you for listening in, tuning in to our discussion. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for hosting us.
Thank you for having us.